Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage on this Thursday, November 7th, 2024. And let's get right to it here into the tropics. We are tracking Hurricane Rafael, still a pretty powerful hurricane into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. We also have a low probability of tropical development just to the north of the Greater Antilles and into the eastern Bahamas. And looking at that, that's pretty low. It was a 30% chance of development yesterday. It has since decreased now to a 20% chance of development just to the north, again, of the Greater Antilles, such as the Dominican Republic, also Puerto Rico and Haiti, and then into the eastern Bahamas. So it is dwindling here with the chances of development. But what we're really tracking here is Hurricane Rafael. It is into the western Atlantic basin and actually into the eastern Gulf of Mexico as of this Thursday. And it has been a pretty powerful hurricane. Did make landfall in western Cuba as a Cat 3 hurricane yesterday, and notice it's still at Cat 2 strength, but it's going to decrease back to Cat 1 and eventually a tropical storm as it moves further west into the rest of the Gulf of Mexico. Here is the latest track from the model guidance of Hurricane Rafael, taking it further to the west here into the central and eventually the western Gulf of Mexico by later this week and into the weekend. While a couple outlier models kind of turn this to the north towards the Gulf Coast, I actually believe these models are correct, and most of them taking them just to the south and west back toward Mexico as a tropical storm this weekend. And looking at that, the National Hurricane Center agrees that the system right now at 100 mile per hour hurricane category 2, movement west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. It's going to continue on that westward track as we go through the opening stages of the weekend as a hurricane, and then once it takes that more southwesterly track back toward Mexico early next week, it will weaken back to a tropical storm, probably a weaker tropical storm at this point. So let's track that this afternoon. Still a pretty powerful category 2 hurricane, 100 miles per hour here, maybe down to 95 miles per hour on the next update, but regardless, still a pretty decent hurricane this afternoon. Going in towards Friday now, it's still a 986 millibar hurricane, probably a category 1 still at this point as it moves into the central Gulf of Mexico, into the open waters here. Then as we go into Saturday, it'll weaken down to a strong tropical storm or very low end category 1 hurricane at this point on Saturday. As it finally moves into the western Gulf of Mexico, Sunday it really starts to fizzle out and then it's trying to make landfall there into Mexico on Monday or Tuesday early next week, which by the way is Veterans Day, so be keeping an eye on that. Let's look here closer to home at our temperature anomalies. We have a very big cold air pocket here into the southwestern United States thanks to our next storm system, and this has dropped a lot of snowfall, so in return in the mountains, yeah, we're seeing temperature anomalies that are nearly 30 degrees below the norm for early November, and we're seeing some warmer air than normal across the mid-Atlantic, down into the southeast and along the Gulf Coast, and also up there in southern Canada. So let's track that this afternoon. Here are your high temperatures expected this Thursday afternoon. We can see 40s, 50s to the north, not too shabby for early November, and then look at the warmth down here near the southeast coast and the Gulf Coast, into the 70s, into the mid-80s down here, and then there's that cold pocket aloft, and that will continue as we go into Friday afternoon. Much of the same, maybe just a handful of degrees warmer up across the Midwest compared to today, into the 50s. And maybe even some low 60s, but we'll take it for early November up there. Here's our next storm system we're tracking. We have a pretty strong low-pressure trough down here into Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and West Texas that'll kind of meander as we go through tomorrow, so really not moving that quickly. We got a big ridge of high pressure over the top here, kind of blocking it, and we actually have blizzard warnings across northeast New Mexico, winter storm warnings in the pinks. They're into Colorado, western Oklahoma Panhandle, the far northwest Texas Panhandle, and much of north central New Mexico, and then winter weather advisories surrounding that. We also have flood watches that are in effect for western Oklahoma and northwest Texas, including parts of the eastern Texas Panhandle for the rain side of this system. So this afternoon, very heavy snow in Colorado, eastern and southeastern Colorado, that is, down into northeastern and eventually central portions of New Mexico. Snowfall rates on the order of 1 to 3 inches will be expected, and then on the rain side, obviously some soaking rains for parts of Oklahoma down into Texas where those flood watches are in effect. Really going to see that rain start to pile up as we go into tonight down there. Snowfall continues though for Colorado and New Mexico. Friday though, it really starts to snow there in southeastern Colorado. So any ski resorts out there definitely going to be loving it. And here's the rainfall totals just going over the next 48 hours or so through Saturday, November 9th. And you can see the heaviest of the rains, again, southern Kansas down into western Oklahoma and northwestern Texas, including the eastern Texas panhandle. There could be rainfall amounts actually getting over 4 to 5 inches in some of these areas. So localized flash flooding will be a possibility. But the snow side, yeah, in the blizzard warnings, we could see a couple of feet of snow still on the way here across southeast Colorado and even northeast New Mexico through your Saturday, and that could cause a lot of significant travel impacts. We have major in the red and then purple areas, extreme travel impacts across southeast Colorado into northeast New Mexico, even the far western Oklahoma panhandle and the far northwestern Texas panhandle. We definitely have some significant travel impacts likely. So if travel takes you out here, make sure to take it slow. It is not advised through Saturday. A lot of snowfall out there, and again, you did see those blizzard warnings. That snowfall will be whipping around with the wind. Going into the weekend, Saturday afternoon, again, what you see is what you get type of thing. We got the warmth across the east into the upper Midwest. Great Lakes, we're in the 50s. The Ohio Valley, we're in the 60s. You go even further south, we're in the 70s and 80s, closer to the Gulf Coast, and really that will continue and be the theme through the weekend, even as we go into Sunday afternoon. And that storm system that's kind of meandering down there in Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas will finally be moving as we go into the weekend, making its way up toward the Midwest into Nebraska and western Iowa. And what that's going to do is kind of bring some of that moisture up into the Midwest. So the Hawkeye state of Iowa, into Missouri, into portions of Arkansas, Louisiana. We're going to start to spread some of that rainfall further off to the north and east by Saturday. So some unsettled weather there. Then as we go into Sunday, just a plume of moisture from the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, all the way down through the Tennessee Valley and the deep south, including the Dixie Alley region. Going to be seeing some heavier rainfall. Thankfully, this time around, we're not looking at any widespread severe weather, but we're looking at some heavier rains, and it will be piling up. These are areas that are in drought, believe it or not, and it's good to see a couple of inches of rain from Ohio and West Virginia, areas that are actually in an extreme or exceptional drought right now, getting some decent soaking rains. Kentucky getting in here, and then even down into Tennessee, we're seeing that. Mainly western Tennessee, but we're still seeing some decent rains, and then that'll fishtail its way down into Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and southeast Texas. Snowfall, we're going to be seeing that kind of tapering off as we go in towards the weekend. Maybe a couple of inches of snow into southeastern Wyoming, into Colorado as well, but the main snow axis will be in southern Canada, and even that up to the north in southern Canada is really only just a few inches. Going into next week, here's next week's weather pattern. We, more of the same, right? We're seeing a ridge of high pressure across the east, so snow lovers out here in the east, I feel sorry for you. You're probably not going to be seeing snowfall here next week with these type of temperatures, and then a big trough coming in again from the northeast Pacific into the west coast, especially the Pacific Northwest there, and that's going to cause some cooler air down into California, into Oregon, and out west, even that snowpack kind of leading behind those below normal temperatures. But everywhere else, even in southern Canada, going to be trending above normal for temperatures going into mid-November. This takes you through Friday, November 15th, and the precipitation will be plentiful out here in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Oregon, Northern California, Idaho, Montana, even the Cascades getting in on the action, and some moisture out here in the southeast as well. And it's going to be adding up through next week. Very heavy rains for places like Seattle, Portland, all the way down into the communities of Northern California, and then some heavier rains for the deep south and southeast next week as well. Very dry though in the Great Plains and the Rockies as we see it right now. Heavier snows, it's going to be piling up in British Columbia. If you live in Vancouver, get ready for some heavier snow. The Cascades here in the Pacific Northwest, the Sierras getting in on some snow, and parts of the Northwest Rockies like Idaho and Montana, maybe even western Wyoming, may start to see the snow fly at times as we go through next week. Looking at the newest drought monitor that was released today here, and it's released every single Thursday, we're still seeing some improvements in the drought, so that's some good news, but we're also seeing some, worsening of the drought as well. And you can see a lot more of the red showing up here in the Rockies and the Northwest Plains, into the Dakotas, for example, eastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, seeing a lot of extreme drought right now. Exceptional drought starting to show up there in southeast Ohio and into West Virginia. That is also something to note. And even down here, sneaky area in southern New Jersey, seeing an extreme drought as well. So a lot of areas areas, you guys get it. We need the rainfall, and hopefully we can get some over the next couple of weeks. We'll be tracking it for you right here on this channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below for the latest weather information right at your fingertips. Whether it's a video or a live stream, we got you covered here. Make sure to turn on all post notifications so you are notified when the video is posted. And also make sure to press the like button down below, especially if you did like today's weather forecast. Definitely much appreciated. I appreciate everybody's support on this channel. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. We'll get to those later on today, and I hope everyone has a terrific rest of their Thursday out there.